The Monday edition of the Vegas Take coming away live, 101.5 FM, 720 AM, K-Dawn. Chris Wynn in for Brian Shapiro, along with J.D. Sharp here in studio. You can also catch us on our YouTube channel at the Vegas Take Radio, and you can catch us streaming online there as the transition begins, folks. And joining us now on the line is our friend of the show, attorney Michael Avenatti, joining us now for our segment. Michael, we appreciate you spending some time on a Monday. How are you?
Good morning, guys. Doing pretty well. How are you?
Doing really well.
Doing great, Michael.
Of course, the transition begins, Michael, and what I mean by that is this. Of course, the House of Representatives and, President Trump has become the third president, the first president, by the way, in his first term to be impeached. So now we transition to the Senate trial, and, of course, there's been a lot of moving and shaking and political moves being made, particularly on the Democratic side, as Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, is holding up the articles of impeachment. And Donald Trump, of course, is approaching it in a way that only Donald Trump can, where he basically is a denial. Donald Trump saying he wasn't actually impeached, which is, we've all seen this coming, and we've all kind of expected this, right, Michael? But I wanted to get your thoughts initially on the tactics of Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats with respect to the articles of impeachment and not exactly being receptive and cordial when it comes to handing over the articles of impeachment.
Well, first of all, this claim that he has not been impeached is ludicrous.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely absurd. I mean, he has been impeached. The House passed impeachment charges. The fact that they have not sent those charges yet to the United States Senate does not negate the fact that he has, in fact, been impeached. This is no different than if a criminal defendant is charged in a case, but the charges or the indictment is not yet been assigned to a court of law or to a judge for trial. It doesn't mean the individual has not been charged. So, this rhetoric, this messaging that you're seeing from Trump and some of the other Republicans that somehow he has not been impeached it's absolutely ludicrous. I mean, it's absurd. I don't know what other words to use. So that's number one. Number two, as it relates to Nancy Pelosi's decision and the Democratic leadership's decision not to send the charges yet to the U.S. Senate, I applaud it, and I've been advocating for that position. Look, until it becomes clear that there's going to actually be a real trial as opposed to a rigged trial, and what I mean by that is a trial with witnesses, a trial with the presentation of evidence, a trial where people have not already pre-announced their decision without even seeing or hearing all of the evidence. Until that happens, Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats better stand strong and not send the charges to the U.S. Senate. They need to play hardball. They need to finally step up and fight the fight like the Republicans do. They should be asking themselves each and every day, well, what would Mitch McConnell do? What would the Republican leadership do? And that's exactly how they should play the game.
Is it possible to hold up the articles of impeachment for too long, considering that the election is coming up in less than 10 months?
I don't think so. I mean, I would hold them up until it becomes clear that there's going to be a legitimate, real trial. And in the meantime, the House, Adam Schiff and the like, they should continue to take evidence, continue to hear from witnesses. There's a bunch of witnesses who have yet to testify. As I've said before on this show, they should be making efforts to hear from Mulvaney. They should be making efforts to hear from Parnas. There's no fewer than 5, 6, 8 witnesses that they should be seeking testimony from in the interim, and they should continue the investigation. In the meantime, Trump can twist in the wind.
Well, your thoughts on that? Because look, the charge, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just the average guy looking at this, not necessarily from a legal expert opinion. I'm looking at this like the Republicans are saying that the Democrats don't want to go through the quote unquote court process of bringing and waiting for the courts to make decisions, because in essence it's almost like the Republicans are able to run the clock out, right, Michael? Am I correct in that kind of assessment that that's the reason why the Democrats aren't going through the whole court process with respect to actual witnesses? Because this is, look, we're about to enter into January, right? So like a lot of this stuff can take a ton of time if they were to go about it in that way where you were going to get the courts involved.
Well, I mean, I think the Democrats are not proceeding with pushing the charges to the Senate because they don't believe there's going to be a fair trial.
Right.
Number one, and then as it relates to the witnesses, they don't want to be, the Democrats don't want to be delayed in the courts relating to Mulvaney and others asserting executive privilege, but there's ways to expedite that. It's not going to happen overnight, but there's ways to expedite those decisions. But there's other witnesses like Lev Parnas, for instance. His attorney has been very vocal about the fact that he's prepared to turn over documents and he's prepared to testify. I don't know why Adam Schiff and the Democrats have not called him to testify. If I was Adam Schiff, I would be calling a witness every week until I felt that the investigation was in a place where it could be turned over to the Senate and until I believed that the Senate was going to actually have a real trial.
But on the flip side, can't the Republicans ask anyone to testify that they want to as well?
Well, provided that it is deemed to be relevant, and ultimately Chief Justice Roberts would preside over the trial in the Senate, and he would make a determination as to whether it was relevant to the charges to have various people testify, i.e. Hunter Biden. The Republicans could request that Hunter Biden testify, but ultimately Chief Justice Roberts would have to make that call.
Another topic also, Michael, we want to get into you on. Obviously, last week down in your neck of the woods in Los Angeles, there was the Democratic debate that went down, and a lot of interesting aspects of that debate were presented themselves. Obviously, we had Elizabeth Warren and Klobuchar attacking Mayor Pete at the debate. And, you've been one who's been a proponent, really, of the Democrats toughening up, right? And that this is something I think that's a good thing for Democrats, given you're going to be going up against the likes of Donald Trump in a 2020 election cycle. What did you make of the debate between the Democrats there, and what do you think this means as far as Joe Biden being the front runner there on the Democratic side?
Well, the one thing I'll say is I think that Senator Klobuchar at one point said, why didn't come here to fight? Well, if you didn't come here to fight, if you're not on the debate stage ready to fight, then you're sure as hell not prepared to beat Donald Trump or go up against Donald Trump. And this whole idea that this election's not going to be a fight is ridiculous. So, as far as I'm concerned, if she doesn't want to fight, if she doesn't want to get down in the gutter and trade shots, then she should get the hell out of the race, because nobody is going to beat Donald Trump that is not prepared to get down in the gutter and trade shots with the guy. So now, with that said, I think that the debate, it was exactly what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a debate. It's supposed to be a battle for the nomination. I had no problem with it.
I'll tell you this, watching Pete Buttigieg just handle Elizabeth Warren, countering her claim that he was using elitist money, and him saying, well, that's crazy because the most money I can raise is $3,000 per donor, and your net worth is 100 times mine. I think that Pete Buttigieg, I'm getting more confidence in Pete Buttigieg that he is actually the biggest threat to Donald Trump and not Joe Biden. I think that he would actually go blow to blow with Donald Trump, and I think that Donald Trump would probably actually he would probably stoop to the level of calling him out for being a homosexual, and that would blow up in his face. Are you gaining more faith in Pete Buttigieg?
Well, I've always been a fan of Mayor Pete, and I've spent some time with him over the last 18 months, and I'm very impressed by the guy. He's by far the smartest person in the field. There's no question about that. I have some serious questions as to whether he can win, frankly, in the key states against Donald Trump. I don't love that matchup for a bunch of reasons. He's on the smaller side physically. I don't think optically that's going to look good against Trump, who's 6'2", 6'3", pushing 320 probably. This whole 230, this whole 235 thing is absurd.
Yeah, he's at least 260 now.
So I'm not crazy about that. I don't know how his young age is going to play in the swing states. I don't know how his sexual orientation is going to play in the swing states, unfortunately. I think that Trump will try to exploit that if that were the matchup. And whether we want to accept it or not, he'd probably get traction on that. Unfortunately, it's disgusting, but true. And so I'm not crazy about that matchup. Look, I think Mayor Pete will likely be president someday. I think he has a hell of a shot. I just don't know if it's this time around against this guy, Donald Trump.
It's just fascinating, though, because, Michael, you see Republicans, they like to frame these early matchups with whether it's Democratic debates, whether it's Democrats in the media going against each other, and they like to point out, oh, look, they're eating each other alive, right? And it's like a circular firing squad. But and look, you pointed this out many times. This is a necessity, right? These Democratic candidates need to toughen up. They need to find, whoever it is that ends up being the nominee has got to be able to be combative. They have to be able to go at President Trump. And this is something I think that can help them out when you're in situations like this, where you can point out the differences between the candidates, and where you can actually, you can show that you have a spine and that you're willing to go up against President Trump. I think when you have moments like this in this Democratic debate, I think it can only help your cause, is what I guess I'm trying to say.
Well, I mean, that's entirely true. I mean, if you look at NFL teams don't go from training camp to playing in the Super Bowl, right? I mean, they have preseason games, they have a regular season, they have big games, they have national games, and then they toughen up and they get ready to play in the Super Bowl. You don't go from training camp to the Super Bowl. And, the debates are designed to basically be the regular season in many ways, in my view, as it relates to leading up to the nomination. I mean, look, if these candidates can't handle getting beat up and can't handle climbing in the ring with fellow Democrats, how the hell are they going to handle Donald Trump?
Speaking of Donald Trump, and we're joined by Michael Avenatti, by the way, friend of the show, and also, attorney on the phone lines here on the Vegas Take. I'm Chris Wynn in for Brian Shapiro, along with J.D. Sharp. And speaking of Trump, he lost some more support in the last few days. Michael, of course, the editorial comes out regarding Christianity Today. And not only do they not support him, and not only do they support impeachment, they support him being removed from office. And the editor-in-chief, Mark Galley, was on MSNBC, and he had this perspective with respect to his thoughts on Donald Trump, saying that the magazine is a far-left publication. Michael.
His characterization of us as being far-left is far from accurate. We consider ourselves, and most people consider us, a pretty centrist magazine in the evangelical world. We're certainly not far right, and I suppose anyone who's not far right, he would consider far left, and there's a right to say that, but it's factually inaccurate that we're far left. We're pretty centrist. We rarely comment on politics unless we feel it rises to the level of some national or concern that is really important.
So this is pretty much par for the course, right, Michael, with respect to Donald Trump? Anytime he feels slighted or, there's some type of negative comment or negative reaction to what he's been doing, he seems to take it all the way across the board to, just blasting the organization. But this comes back to evangelicals, Michael, and their support of Donald Trump. I've contended all along that they absolutely despise the man as far as, how he's conducted himself in life. But their entire motivation, Michael, is based on whether, his perspective when it comes to judges in this country and appointing conservative judges, and also the administration's stance with respect to abortion and issues like that. Am I correct in that assessment when we talk about evangelicals and President Trump?
Well, I think you are, in that those two issues are of paramount importance, and a lot of people of Christian faith and a lot of evangelicals have held their nose and, voted for this guy and supported him over the years because of those issues. But, I find this pretty significant in that, this could be the first crack in that evangelical support dam, if you will, for Donald Trump. And it would not take a lot, frankly, to turn, 20, 50, 100, maybe a few 100,000 evangelical voters against him in light of something like this. So this is very significant in my view. I mean, we're going to find out how significant as this election plays out.
I'm going to push back a little bit. I did some research on Christianity Today, and they've got a circulation of 130,000. They've got about 260,000 readers. And if Donald Trump loses 50 to 100,000 votes in a state like Louisiana or Alabama, where he's going to win significantly, do you think that's really going to affect him long term?
Well, I'm not. No, I don't. Not in those states. But I wonder. I don't know how much traction this is going to get in a place like Ohio or Wisconsin, Western Pennsylvania, and the like. And while their base of subscribers may not be that significant, the fact that the media is reporting on this and this has become such a big story could have some significance.
Michael, we haven't had a chance to get your opinion and perspective with respect to Donald Trump and the comments made about former Congressman Dingell out of Michigan. Of course, Donald Trump holds a rally in that state, and it's in the midst of the impeachment process going on, the impeachment vote that night. And, of course, Representative Dingell, his wife, is now the representative in Michigan in that state now, apparently. And so she votes to impeach Donald Trump. So Donald Trump uses that as an opportunity in the actual rally to disparage the senator's late husband. And to say that it was deplorable would be an understatement. But this is just another indication of what Donald Trump does whenever he feels like, he's been slighted or something. It's just absolutely, to me, it was unconscionable that he would make those comments at a public rally like that.
Well, this guy's a petulant child. I mean, he's demonstrated that time and time again over the last 3 years. He's also, a coward. He's your typical schoolyard bully who, advertises himself as being tough, but when you really stand up to him, he's a paper tiger. But, look, and you saw this with John McCain, and you've seen this from time to time. I mean, to disparage, a dead man, and especially to do it through his widow is disgraceful. It's disgusting. And, look, to my friends to the people on the right, if it was a liberal, quote unquote, or someone on the left that did it, I'd say the exact same thing. I mean, there's basic levels of decency and conduct that I don't care if you're on the right, the left, or in the center, all of us should adhere to. You don't attack, a dead man through his widow, period.
Makes total sense, and it was just, it seems to me that we keep coming back to this. It's people. He makes a statement like this. He does something that is just absolutely unacceptable, and yet some people try to rationalize around and make excuses for it. It's crazy.
I think sometimes when he's in front of a bunch of people at a rally, he makes his impulsive decisions. He thinks that he is on a reality TV show or he's an entertainer, and he doesn't realize that he's the president of the United States. And he says crazy things like this. Now, that being said, John Dingell did go after Trump for about 18 months on Twitter, wrote a book about it. I mean, they definitely had some bad blood, but the way that he attacked him, to me, was counterproductive.
Well, the problem is the guy's no longer alive, JD, so he can't even defend himself. It's not like the guy can come back, and it's not like it was when John McCain was still alive, and he ends up voting against the bill, against the health care bill, and you can blast him to his face. If you look at
John Dingell's Twitter account, there's probably 7 or 8 incidents in the last 16 months where he calls him a criminal, where he calls him terrible, terrible things. And so, again, I'm not surprised that Trump did it. It's a problem, and I'm a Trump supporter. It's a problem that I'm not surprised that Trump did it, because he shouldn't respond like that whenever someone goes after him.
So we've talked, Michael, obviously about Lindsey Graham and his remarkable transition, I guess you call it, all over the place when he deals with Donald Trump and what he said about Donald Trump. Well, Lindsey Graham, Michael, he also weighed in on calling, and he actually called out President Trump over the Dingell comment earlier.
Mr. President, pull us together as a country. This joke does not help. It is not funny in my view.
Hasn't the ship sailed, Michael, as far as us expecting President Trump to pull this country together? We're 3 years in, Michael, okay? This isn't going to happen, right? He's not going to make some magical transition to being the uniter-in-chief. That's just not who he is.
Look, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, and I've said this before, when I went to bed on election night in 2016, I was surprised, but I was not shocked. I had actually predicted about a year prior that I thought that Trump would win, and people laughed at me and told me that I was absolutely crazy and out of my mind. I was surprised. I was not shocked. I was surprised that I had turned out to be right, frankly. But I thought to myself, okay, look, this guy's an egotistical. He's got the biggest ego on the planet. He's a narcissist. But he's now been elected to the presidency of the United States. He's the leader of the free world, right? So this should cause him to perhaps be a little more reflective as a man and rise to the office and understand the enormous responsibility that he has now taken on and the prestige of the office. It doesn't get any higher than that, frankly, right? I don't know of any bigger ego stroke than winning the presidency of the United States. So I thought to myself, well, this guy will rise to the occasion. The office will change the man, or at least I was hoping And now we know that thought was ridiculous. It was without any basis whatsoever, because the man has tried to change the office. He's a bigger narcissist today than he's ever been. His ego's more out of control than it's ever been. He hasn't risen to the occasion. He demeans the office of the President of the United States day in and day out, domestically and abroad. And I think there's a decent likelihood that he's changed the office forever. And so, he's not a uniter. He's never going to be a uniter. He's a divider. And I think it's a very dangerous thing.
And that's a very good point. If this doesn't stroke his ego, what will? Every single person in the world saying, "I love you, Donald Trump," it's almost like that's what he's going for.
I mean, if winning the presidential election and being president of the United States with all of the pomp and the circumstance and the adulation and the attention and the constant hanging on every word that you say, I mean, if that's not enough to make you feel fulfilled from an egotistical perspective as a man, I mean, what the hell is?
Exactly.
Michael Avenatti, attorney, joining us here on the Vegas Take with his perspective as we get set. We're just a matter of days, right, Michael, from 2020, and this election cycle is going to get charged up, and it's going to be an enticing and intriguing back and forth, to say the least, right?
Well, yeah, I think that's right. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in Iowa, although, I believe that the nomination process really isn't going to start until South Carolina. I think South Carolina is really going to be the key first primary to see who's going to be the next nominee. I think the process is going to play out longer than it has in years past. I don't think it's going to be as cut and dry early on as it's been. It's going to be very interesting.
That's Michael Avenatti, friend of the show. You can follow him at Michael Avenatti on Twitter. Some great tweets this weekend from Michael, not just on politics, not just on things. He can also tweet about sports as well too. JD, he chimed in a little Jerry Jones this weekend on the Dallas Cowboys.
He is not a Jason Garrett fan, from what I understand.
Exactly right, right, Michael.
Well, I mean, look, the guys had. I mean, let's talk a little Cowboys for a minute, and I've followed that team for a very long time, and of course Jerry and I have had some run-ins in the past on the legal front. But, this is a guy that, I mean, the only reason that Garrett has kept that job is because he allows for Jerry Jones to meddle in the team and allows Jerry to really, call the shots and be very hands-on from a coaching perspective. And there's not a lot of coaches out there that will tolerate that kind of behavior. And certainly people of quality, nobody of quality is going to come into that position and really stand for that. I mean, the only coach that Jerry has had since Jimmy Johnson that was able to really lead that team and put them in a position where they could potentially make a run at another Super Bowl was Bill Parcells. And I don't think Jerry's going to turn over control of the team to the degree now.
Did we lose Michael? Is it? We lost you for a second there, Michael. Yeah,
I'm here.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, we're actually up against a break. We appreciate all your sentiments, Mr. Avenatti, and we hope you have enjoy the rest of your holiday. And we'll talk to you again soon. Okay.
All right, buddy.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks a lot, Michael.
Michael Avenatti here joining us, attorney on the Vegas Take. And look, here's the deal. Yeah, with respect to the Cowboys, I mean, the expectations were high, right, JD? They were supposed to be a Super Bowl contender. And it hasn't even transpired anywhere close to that. So,
well, I mean, it's to the point where I wonder if Jason Garrett has damaging information on the Jones family or Jerry Jones himself. Because after I see Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator, who looks like he's about 15 years old, by the way. But the play calling on third and short yesterday was, I mean, it was unacceptably bad. You can't have a running back like Ezekiel Elliott, who you're paying the most of any running back in the NFL. He's making $20 million plus a year, and you don't give him the ball on 3rd and 1 every single time. How is that humanly possible? Makes no sense to me whatsoever.
That's JD Sharp. I'm Chris Winden for Brian Shapiro. Much more. The Vegas Take is coming your way on the other side of the break on 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDON.